Hello, Misfits, and welcome. Today we have another Reddit video for you, and our very own Emily has compiled a list of stories that we will react and respond to. What is our theme today?
Am I the asshole?
Very good. I feel like these are always
They're just so
pretty good.
juicy.
They are
Very spicy.
very spicy. I'm ready for some spice.
So, our first story today is Am I the asshole for kicking out my little brother's best friend? Title speaks for itself. Here's the context. Yeah, first thoughts.
No.
First impressions.
Okay, little brother's best friend. I wonder how little, like how young we're talking here. Because if they're a kid, I bet they are. I bet they are a jerk and misunderstood.
They're very annoying.
Look, as a teacher, children are very frustrating. Sometimes they do things, and we're just like, "All right, be gone."
Okay, so cast. They title it cast. It's so funny. Me, Jay, the problem player, M, my brother, the two girls in the party, and my best friend L. We're all 14. Wow, you nailed the kids thing.
How did I know? Like, this is like the exact, well, not quite the exact, but this is almost the age group I teach as well. So,
Having flashbacks.
PTSD.
Okay, so we're all starting a homebrew campaign a week or two ago, and bear in mind, I made items, weapons, races, subclasses, everything. It took me almost 6 months to make everything I needed, and setting characters. This campaign was set in the modern day. Races, monsters, and magic are still around, but cars, AC and heating, electricity, you get the idea, are all around as well. We had a session 0 with no PCs made because I told them to wait until they hear the setting. When everyone gets there, everyone has a level 2, class, subclass, and race of their choice with a name blank sheet. No backstory or items. Well, Jay showed up with a fully made barbarian. I looked at him and said, "Dude, I told you not to give them a backstory yet. It's fine that you made them a barbarian, but this takes place during the modern day." He responded with, "Well, I thought D&D was set in the medieval era." I took a breath and said, "D&D isn't always set in the modern day, but I've spent so long on this campaign, M invited you to see this because he wanted to show you what I've made and done. This took me 6 months to create everything." He looked at me and said in a condescending tone, "Oh, okay, so you lied about this being D&D? You used homebrew to make everything?" The way he said homebrew was very, very rude. I eventually told him basically that this is something I enjoy doing. I've never seen anything like my campaign before, and that I wanted to do something original. But after some back and forth, M said, "Look, Jay, just let this happen. He's worked so hard to make this." Eventually, through the session, which he reluctantly resigned himself to staying at, he made racist and sexist jokes and comments, and after a half hour of this, I said, "Look, either stop with the rude comments or leave." I gestured to the girls and to Elle, who's African American. "We have people that are who you're making these jokes toward, and I will not tolerate it." He said it was just a joke and left. After this, I kicked him out of the group, and then I was on a call between me, our parents, the group, and the school after I proved my innocence. We all cut ties with Jay.
The school?
The school, apparently.
The school and parents?
Oh, man.
I wonder if this was like, there are some schools that have like D&D clubs.
D&D clubs.
Yeah.
That's my
correct.
guess.
I mean, I think this guy's the asshole. Like, not the poster, but the younger brother's friend.
Jay. Yes.
Yeah, listen, man, there's some red flags, too. I don't know. Thank goodness they cut ties, is all I'm saying.
Well, I'm also kind of like proud of the poster and DM for like taking such a hard stance immediately to the problematic things. Like,
That's rare to see
It's
in a
hard to do.
14-year-old.
Yeah.
normally they just let it continue,
Yeah.
and players at their table might be very uncomfortable, but also not comfortable speaking out about it. So at least in this situation, in my opinion, the DM maybe has made some very good friends of some of the other players,
Yeah.
right?
The second Jay was like, "Oh, so this isn't D&D," I was like, "Yeah, you are 14.
I know. It's exactly something a 14-year-old would say, because that is the age group I teach.
Exactly.
Oh, pain.
Exactly. It's the age group I used to teach.
Mm-hmm.
But man, good grief. Yeah, good on the OP. They're definitely not the asshole. And it sounds like it was all handled fine. And
Handled
before
perfectly. Yeah.
the game even really started.
Yeah, there was one comment that said something along the lines of, kicking the player out was necessary in this situation, but it would have gone smoother if you'd explained the campaign concept in advance. That way players who weren't interested wouldn't have shown up in the first place.
Wasn't that
And then
the
someone
point of
quoted
the
a part
session
where they
zero?
had session 0, right?
Yeah.
And said, "Did you completely miss this portion of his post? What do you think this says?"
Yeah. It's like
They
they
did
are
have a session 0.
like they are giving them the setting in advance. Like,
Correct.
you know?
And I mean, the DM even told them, "Hey, I'm not gonna I want to reveal what the concept is, but know that it's unconventional. Bring a blank character sheet because of
Yeah.
that." I mean, that's the only reason that I could see any DM saying, "Bring a blank character sheet."
I feel like they did everything they could. But you know, kids don't read instructions or follow them. Like,
Never.
literally never.
I was a kid once. We were all kids once.
We
were
know.
all kids once.
It's so hard to read those directions at the top of the page. It's much easier to just skip to the questions.
Correct. Well, and you know, when that's what you're instructed to do for standardized tests, it's how you begin to
Okay,
think.
we're not gonna get into
Okay.
we're not gonna get into an educational conversation. Here's the weekend. We're not at work right now.
Okay, are y'all ready for the next one?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
This one is titled, "I am getting increasingly frustrated by a jokester in a Curse of Strahd campaign. Am I
Ooh.
the asshole?"
Bring it. Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
I love Curse of Strahd stories. I really do. Do we think the poster is the asshole, or if the joke person is the asshole?
Right off the bat,
Yeah.
I don't know
Initial
if it's a. I'd like to think DMs are usually level-headed, so if it's a jokester, they've had to been pushing some buttons for a while. So I'm gonna say the jokester first.
guess. Okay. Well, and it's Curse of Strahd, so I'm trying to picture a jokester character in that
Curse of
setting.
Strahd is a pretty serious campaign.
It doesn't really lend itself
Very
to
dark.
jokes. I mean, it depends on how you play it. We did have an entire moment about getting donkey hats, so
Oh,
That is
very,
true,
very
and it
sweet
is
moment.
such a memorable moment.
very silly. Yeah, I think the jokester might be the asshole. That's my guess. We'll find out.
Okay. So, this one goes, "Hello. I've been playing a paid campaign of Curse of Strahd on Roll20, and I'm having a bit of an issue with it regarding one player in particular, and I'm concerned whether or not if I'm in the wrong here."
So they're the
first off,
player, not
They're a player in
Okay.
a paid campaign
interesting.
where you're paying
the DM.
You know, there's certain expectations of everyone is enjoying, and so
Got it.
Right.
you know, right. When I heard of Curse of Strahd, I got very excited since it was roleplay heavy and it had a serious tone, a tone that the DM empathizes with horror-themed encounters and dour music. We have a player I'll call Johnny, though. I feel like Johnny didn't get the memo that this was going to be a serious campaign. Whenever something happens, he would always have something smart to say or make a joke that would usually miss more than hit. This would be okay if it weren't for the fact that most of his jokes are political or edgy in nature. Whenever a character, may it be PC or NPC, gets into a serious moment, Johnny will always have a quip to deflate it. Player's character revealing that her children died because of Strahd? Well, I didn't know Strahd was into kids. NPCs getting married? Remember that the divorce rate in Barovia is 90%. Me, a male playing as a female character? Tell OP's character to search for traps. He's really into them. Over the course of 5 sessions, I've been increasingly getting annoyed at Johnny. It's to the point that I'm pondering on talking to my DM to try and tell him about my feelings, about feeling the room and finding a time and place to do his quips and jokes. Am I just being negative here, or I do occasionally snicker when he makes a really good joke, but that's few and far between. Edit. The other players are kind of in the middle ground. They like it, but sometimes they don't laugh.
I'm kind of annoyed with Johnny too.
I'm annoyed with Johnny as well.
I will say, I think it's a little bold of the poster to be like, Curse of Strahd is a roleplay heavy game. Like it's bold to assume that Curse of Strahd is always roleplay heavy, dark, brooding, filled with dour music. Like
one of the hardest parts, and you've talked about this for Curse of Strahd, is that there's like no way to really bring a character's background into it.
There is a way, but I mean, it was my first campaign, so I didn't know how. But there are ways, but like, you can't assume that every Curse of Strahd game is going to be like that. Like, it's all dependent on the DM and how they run it. You know, I've definitely heard of very jokey versions, and I've heard of like very combat heavy versions, and then the roleplay heavy ones. So like, you know, bold to assume that. However, if everybody else is kind of approaching the game one way, and then this other character comes in and is like, I don't know, deciding this is how he's going to test his stand-up comedy.
Read the room.
Yeah. So one person asked, who is Johnny? Is he your friend or is he a random customer of the paid DM? Was there a session 0? Was tone discussed? Did Johnny agree to a serious tone campaign before he started effing around? And OP responded and said, Johnny is another rando customer who's friends with someone else in the group. DM insisted on the serious tone at session 0, but Johnny just can't help it.
Okay, so tone was established in session, because that was going to be my next question. Yeah, Johnny's the asshole then. He's probably either starved for attention, or he feels uncomfortable when things get dark and sad and feels like he needs to make up for it.
Absolutely.
Probably one of those things.
I mean, I do know that we make jokes when things get too serious because sometimes we have to break the tension.
For sure. I do that.
A lot of times.
I do that.
Because otherwise, if you can't laugh, what do you have, right? But there's still, you have to observe tones.
For sure. I think this person should talk to the DM about it. You know? Like, I mean, probably should have talked to the DM before talking to all the other players. Yeah. And just sort of voice their concerns and thoughts and go from there. That's what I would do.
I agree with that. I do. Mm-hmm. Especially because it's different if it's like our group where we're a group of friends and we all kind of, for the most part, knew each other outside of our game first. Yeah. There's a couple exceptions, but like most of us knew almost everyone before the game started.
We all had connections to each other, but this is a paid situation, so there's like a level of expectation.
Absolutely.
And responsibility the DM has as well.
Yeah. It's just kind of like, I don't know. I can't imagine. Be a lot of pressure, I feel like. Well, these were lovely. Thoroughly enjoyed them. And I like, they were, very different scenarios. So we got some different levels of assholery. That's not a word, but sure, why not? Audience, if you enjoyed these, if you would like to support us and the channel, feel free to like and subscribe. That always helps. But more importantly, leave a comment down below. Tell us about your own experiences. Tell us about your thoughts and opinions on these stories. Any of those things, we would love to hear from you. But with all of that said and done, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, rest of your week, and I will see you again next time.